name is Pam Foor, and welcome to the Move Out Gathering. And you are in the workshop called Welcoming the Nations in Your Neighborhood. So we are going to take some time here to talk about discovering how you can have simple steps to create cross-cultural relationships with people who are here from different countries. And along the way, I'll tell you some of my stories of our experiences working with international students at a university here in Oakland County. And you may also find out, as you are getting to know people who are so different from you, that you might find out that your faith even becomes stronger to you, and you'll find out how you can actually spread that to someone else in a very winsome way. So here we go. And if you're wondering, are you in the right place? Is this really something that you might be interested? Think about this. What are some things that you have? Maybe some of you, do you have a car? Do you have a pet? Do you have children? Maybe you don't have children and you're an empty nester. Maybe you live close to a university or to a neighborhood where there's some refugees who have settled in. Could it be that you love to have coffee with friends? So if you said yes to any of those, chances are you may enjoy creating a cross-cultural friendship, because really all it is, I get to talk to you about friendships, creating friendships and being who you are and answering questions about yourself and getting to know other people. So let me tell you a little bit of a story of why I'm so excited, and might actually talk too fast as I'm telling you stories. But my husband Jeff and I live close to a university, and we're only a couple miles away. And several years ago, someone invited us in and said, hey, would you like to be part of hosting an international student or getting to know them? And we're like, sure. And actually, I'll let you know that my husband was more excited about this than I was. So I do like to cook. I like to have people over, but I am usually scared to death to invite somebody over. So my husband does that. And so between the two of us, we finally got moving into this. So we were invited to a welcome back to college party. And so they were welcoming students from international countries. They were there and they needed rides, because most of the students who come over, they don't have a driver's license yet, so they can't have a car. It's not that they couldn't afford a car, but they just might not have transportation. And so I got my text from someone and said, go pick up these three girls from an apartment complex and bring them to this address. And so, you know, we're a little bit nervous. We go and I pick them up, and when I get there, they're not quite ready. So they invite me up to their apartment, and I find out, and this is all new, I'm learning to pronounce their names. They're coaching me through that. But they welcomed me in as they're getting ready. They brought me treats from their mom, who sent them on the airplane with them to here to Michigan. And all of a sudden, they're giving me hospitality, and I thought I was there to welcome them. So that's just a little teaser of a beautiful 2-year friendship that I had with these girls. I took them to college. It was cold. It was the polar vortex. So I got to know them on those cold car rides on my way to work. That was a great thing. We've shared cooking lessons. We have had dinners out on my back deck, on my front porch. They've been introduced to my dog, and they love it. And all of these seem like easy things, right? Well, all of those things have built this beautiful friendship with these girls, where they have a different culture than I do. They have a different religion than I do. And along the way, we have a beautiful friendship. So these are some of the things I'd like to get you excited about as well. So first of all, you might be thinking, well, why would I like to do this? Why would I be interested in spending time and energy creating a cross-cultural friendship? Well, a couple things. And again, a lot of my background is working with international students. And so you might be really interested to know that most of the students who come over here to university, and these were master's students and PhD students, most of that we worked with, they've never been in an American home. And they're curious. They're here in this new country, and they would love to be invited over. So hopefully that takes the scare factor down, that they would love to come and meet you. And then the other thing is, they might like to cook for you. So food is a common thing that you might be able to share. And as you are doing this, as you are creating this friendship with them, and maybe it's your neighbor, maybe it's someone who's walking in your neighborhood and you're just being kind to them, you're showing them love, you are giving them a picture of what an American looks like. Oh, Americans can be nice and friendly. And then if you do let them know that you're a believer and that you follow Jesus, you are creating an identity for them that, oh, I wasn't sure if Christians were nice, or people who follow Jesus, that's so different than what I believe, but oh, I like Pam, or I like Jeff, and I like the people that they're friends with. Maybe I'll give them a chance. So it creates this dialogue. So you might like to create these friendships just to get to know someone who looks really different from you. Another reason that you might like to do this is if you have children still at home, how amazing is it that you are bringing the nations maybe right into your home? Maybe you bring them over for dinner, someone in your neighborhood or a student, and your kids sit around the table and they're like, oh, well, mom and dad are welcoming to this person who looks so different than I am, or who sounds so different than I am, and oh, wow, they even refer to God as a different way than I do, but I can listen and I can be kind. Your children are going to see that happen and create in them an excitement. For an example, my youngest son is 19, and so we've welcomed people into our home quite a bit. And I was asking them, and I said, hey, what would you say if someone asked you, what did you think about having students from another country into your home? You didn't know them. We had a student who got right off the plane from Mumbai. Someone picked him up to the airport and dropped him off on our front porch. And he was going to stay with us a week, his very first week in America. And my son was going to share a bathroom with him. Their bedrooms were right next door to each other, and he had no idea who this was. And so as the student came and spent this week with us, afterwards, I asked my son, how was that? Like, I'm just assuming we loved it, that you loved it too. And he said, Mom, it was just normal. We always have people over, so it didn't feel that much different. And it was one of those mom moments where you're like, oh, I didn't even get that. Like, we have just made inviting people so much part of our family culture that going that next step of inviting someone from a whole different country over and background just felt natural. So that's one of the whys that you might like this. Maybe you'd like to expose your children to a different culture so that when they're reading their history books and their geography books, they don't just see the country's name and think it's just over there in storybooks. They're like, oh, I have a face now. I have a culture. I know a person over there. And you know what? Some of these friends that we've made are from countries where, if I said their names, you might associate that name with something you've heard in the news, with a negative connotation, and you might automatically have a fear. But you know what? I have to say those thoughts kind of came through my mind when I met some of these students who from so different than me, and with names, just their name kind of created a little bit of fear, but as I got to know them, it is so exciting. And now, even though we are different, I have a friendship. That's a person. It's no longer just a country name or a religion name that I used to be afraid of, but now I have open dialogue. And the why would I want to have friendships like that? I think when you are creating these friendships with someone who looks so different from you, you are opening yourself up like, oh, I do have a faith. I follow Jesus. They might be curious about me just like I'm curious about their faith, whether it's Hindu or Muslim or Buddhist, or sometimes even that we assume just because someone's from a different country, they're a different religion than us. No, I have a friend from South Korea, and when he was talking to me, I just assumed I was getting ready to hear another religion. He said, oh, we're Christian. We're Christian. And that the end of our friendship with him, his time here in America, he actually was able to tell my husband that watching you, Jeff, live out your Christianity was an encouragement to me, so that when I go back to my country, I will be bolder in my faith. I believe that Jesus is my friend, and it encouraged him. So that is another part of a why. Why would you want to create an international friendship is look how you can be able to talk to them about why you have joy, why you're giving hospitality, why you want to reach out and get to know them. You can tell them the reason for your hope and for your joy. And for us and our family, it's Jesus. We can say that Jesus was just have this great example where he welcomed people and he listened to their stories, and that we want to do the same. We want to be welcoming. We want to get to know them and know that they're just like us. So those are some of the whys. Those might be different reasons, like why would I want to get to know a friendship? Another category is there are quite a few refugees or people who are just moving here because they're working for a job or they're working in the college and they're here, and when they first come over, there's different things that you might not think about. If they're a student, they can't work and make money right away. And they can't get a driver's license right away until they're here for a while. So they might need rides. And so you can help them out with rides and and just creating a welcoming atmosphere for them. So those are some of our whys as we go through this. And some of you are thinking, well, like, what does that look like? What are some other ways what does that look like? And again, most of my experience in our family is working with international students, so I'll start with those. Those are some of the hows. Like what does that look like? How can I get involved? Well, right away, I will let you know that my husband and I, we knew nothing about jumping in. We don't have another language. We have not traveled extensively. I have not been to Europe or even near the countries that now I have friends with. But it was a connection. And so through the Move Out Network, there is an international friendship category, and I'll give you that website later. And then there is something called Connect the Nations. And Alexa Lawler runs both of those. She heads those up, and she is amazing at connecting you with someone that you might be able to create a friendship with. And I'll let you know right off the bat, every first meeting that you have with someone doesn't mean you're going to have a 3-year friendship with them, but just that instance of creating kindness, you're making a difference. And then who knows, along the way, you might find someone where Alexa gave me a name and said, hey, these 2 students would really like to know what an American Christmas looks like. Would you be willing to have them in your home? So that's an idea. You can have someone over for a holiday and have them at your table. Just do your normal traditions. It's just like having your cousins over or an aunt and uncle. So have them over, but be ready to explain things to them. Say, this is why maybe we do this. This is how we do this. And then ask them about their culture. And they're very happy to explain that to you. So you have to show interest in them as well as you talking about your culture here in America. How about some other things? What do you normally do? What are some things you like to do? So as you're thinking, how could I engage in international friendship? Do you like to go get coffee with a friend? Are you going on a trip in Michigan and going to see Lake Michigan? Do you know how many students and people from countries where they'd never get to see that big of a body of fresh water are so interested in going to see that? So that could be an idea. Think of things that you're already doing. Think of things that you might invite a friend to, and then maybe that's a way you can invite an international friend in as well. So how do you find somebody? So there are a few ways, like I said, with this international friendship through the Move Out Network, Connect the Nations, and Alexa. There are people who are connected well enough to know that, oh, I know where this refugee area might be, or I know if this student who came in and really like to know an American friend. That's one step. That's one way you could get to know somebody for the first time or to meet them. And another way, here's just a couple things I'm learning, and I'll tell you that I'm taking a class on this that I'll reference this little book here at the end, but it's showing me how can I meet somebody if I don't really know where to meet somebody. Here's a couple tips. So Google. Get your best friend Google out and Google your area, Google your house, pull it up there, and maybe kind of look around it, and maybe, I would say, maybe just a few miles in our area, if you're living close to this area, look in that circle. And then Google ethnic grocery stores. Yep. If you Google that and kind of zoom in, are there clusters? Do you see any categories that look like it might be from a certain country? You can also Google places of worship. And as I'm going along, you might hear me reference a lot of the nationalities that might come from a Muslim or a Hindu or a Buddhist background. And the reason we're doing that is when I'm reading this book, the author is telling us that there are over 3 billion people from those 3 people groups around the world that are most likely living in a country where there aren't many Christians. And so if you really wanted to get to know someone and show them what a Jesus follower looks like, how awesome would it be to have a country who doesn't know what that looks like? And so when they get to know you, they get to call home or write home. It's like, wow, I met this really nice person, and she's Christian, but I really like her, and we get along. Isn't that cool? So that's one reason you'll hear me talk about those nationalities quite a bit, and I have dear friends now from those backgrounds, and so I smile when I think about them. All right, so we're talking about where can I meet someone? If you don't have someone who is networking for you to give you a name, we just said you could Google it, Google ethnic grocery stores, and zoom in and see what is close to you, places of worship, and really when you go on there, Google has little icons to let you know what religion that place of worship might be, and so you can just see what interests you, or say, God, what people group would you like me to reach out to? Or maybe you already have a friend and you'd like to get to know them more. That's another place to look at that. So those are just some little tips, and when we go into the workshop, I have some printouts that if you stay in there, we'll do some FAQs and dive deeper into how you could really find somebody to get to know, kind of the how. And as we're talking about that, there's so much I'm excited about, so I apologize for talking really fast, but what steps could you take? What are some of the practical steps? So I did say you can go to Kensington's website and look up Move Out Network, and this is called International Friendship, and there's one called connecttthenations.org. I think she's .org, or you can just type in Connect the Nations. Alexa Lawler is the director of both of those. She leads both of those groups, and she is just amazing. And the reason I'm so excited about doing this is because did things that she told me. So maybe you're ready to take just that little step and do one thing to get you closer to meeting someone and creating this friendship. Some of the other things that you might really find on those two sources, you'll discover that you might not like games. You might hate cooking. So you're like, okay, what other things could I do? Would you like to be a conversation partner? My husband, Jeff, that was the one way he met a great friend now who was from South Korea. He was in town. He was a professor. He was here just for one semester. He brought his daughter over, and Jeff got his name, and they met for coffee. So once a week, every Monday for several months, they met at the local coffee shop, and this professor just wanted to practice his English. But the fun part, he just wanted to know about our holidays too. What's St. Patrick's Day? And why do people wear green? And things that we might take for granted or seem so easy are interesting to someone from another culture. And I have to say that little baby step of just having coffee led to us meeting his daughter, who is still here and I have a friendship with. When his wife came in town, before he went back to his country, she came in town and they were able to tour around the United States, and we got to meet her and have them over to our house, and it just brings joy to know them. And so those are some of the connections. All of a sudden your world becomes bigger, what you're experiencing about the world, and the world is a little bit smaller, right? Okay, other resources. So Move Out Network, Connect the Nations, and here's the book that I was referencing earlier on. The author's name is Jeannie Marie, and this is called Across the Street and Around the World, and it is following Jesus to the nations in your neighborhood and beyond. And I'm actually doing a course with this author right now, learning so much. It's all spinning in my head, and I'm trying to give you just a little nutshell and excitement of what we're learning. But if you really would like to know more, like some of the details that we can't just put on this video right now, go through this. It's going to let you know. There's chapters on how would I meet an international student? What are some of the things I really should be careful about when I'm greeting them? Do Muslims eat beef or pork or vegetarian or Hindu? How would I respect a friend when they came over? Those things are answered in here. Also, if you're going on a short-term mission trip or being relocated overseas, if that happens anytime soon again, you might learn some things in this as well. So the book is really about how can I get to know someone from another culture? How can I honor them? How can I show them what's the wording I might use to describe the things that I'm doing? So I really highly recommend this book as well. I mean, I think it's on Amazon. So those are some of the next steps of how you can create these friendships. So really, in a nutshell, can you be welcoming? Can you welcome somebody from a different culture who's already living in your neighborhood? It's like having a new friend. Can you cultivate that friendship and keep going and come up with intentional ways to get to know them? And some of the things that we've learned, especially with the students, is the Western world and how we live might be really different from an Eastern world. So where we might value punctuality, your friend might show up an hour late. So you really have to be flexible. So as you go on this journey, just know you can be flexible. You might get to know some new technology. So, and I'm communicating with my international students, a lot of them use WhatsApp. Just like texting, it's a WhatsApp, and then they can use it in their different cultures. So you might even learn some new tech tips as you're getting to know some of these new friendships. And if you have a dog, I just want to kind of plug this into to see that it's the little things. We have a little Bichon Poodle who's this big. His name is Rigby. And we always ask our students before they come over, even our friends, what do you think about dogs? Because a lot of times they might be afraid of a dog. But in the students' case, a lot of times they might be afraid. And so the 3 students I told you about in the very beginning came over to our house. We had our baking night. We were baking banana bread, and we were dancing to their Bollywood playlist that they pulled up on my speakers. And then all of a sudden, my little dog walks in. And one of the girls was so afraid, she jumped up on a chair and started screaming and screaming. Well, by this point, we're all friends, so we could laugh with her, but we did respect her, and we took the dog away, even though he's cute and cuddly. So, but now her goal is to come to my house and finally get to the chance to hold him. So who knew? Your pet will probably be on Instagram or Facebook around the world, because the students might be afraid, but they really like to take pictures of it too. And it's a fun bonding moment. So those are just some of the little fun things as we're going through this. Some of the things too, as if in our workshop, we'll talk over what are some greetings. What are some greetings as you're meeting someone from another country that we could say? What are some of the postures? How do they like to pray? Is it okay to pray at my table when they come over? And it is. It is. We'll wrap that part up for now. And check out the websites. Find out if you're interested in anything like that. Feel free to reach out. And as you take this journey, think of the big picture too. As you're trying to welcome the nations that are already in your neighborhood, think of the experience of the cross-cultural friendships without even having to travel to another country. Think of how the chance that you get to show someone what an American looks like, what a Christian or a Jesus follower looks like, that they can be kind and loving. And as you're doing that, maybe even you'll get to look at your own faith and say, what really is the important part of following Jesus? How much is really just what I grew up with and it's my cultural traditions? And that's been my experience, is I've gotten to know these people and I love them so much and want to honor where they've come from. I'm also thinking, like, you know what? I really want them to know the Jesus that I love too. And I have to decide what are the important things. And so that's something that you and God will get to work out. And that's a little side bonus of creating these international friendships. So I hope if you have like even a little bit of excitement or an interest or curiosity, that you'll be willing to jump in to one of these networks. Thanks so much.